Single mothers are surging into the workforce. A booming economy is one reason, along with state and local family friendly policies, but also a fraying federal safety net. Single mothers in the United States can face many barriers to employment, like finding affordable childcare and predictable work schedules. For many, a sick child or a flat tire can mean a lost job. Yet since 2015, something surprising has happened. The share of young single mothers in the workforce has climbed about 4 percentage points, driven by those without college degrees, according to a New York Times analysis of current population survey data. It's a striking rise even compared with other groups of women who have increased their labor force participation during this period of very low unemployment. The last time single mothers' labor force participation grew so rapidly was during the 1990s, driven by a thriving economy and major federal policy changes. That was the welfare law changes in the mid 90s with Clinton, including welfare overhaul and tax incentives. In recent years, though, there has been no new federal policy that would obviously encourage single mothers to work in large numbers, just to as called President Trump. Instead, they seem to be responding to a patchwork of policies, both carrots and sticks. At the federal level, the safety net has become less reliable, so working for pay is increasingly their only option. But at the local one, the new policies like paid leave and minimum wage increases have made it more feasible for single mothers to work. Together, these appear to have primed them to take advantage of the biggest driver of all, a highly competitive labor market. The calculus of what makes sense has since changed a little bit, said Pamela J. Loprist, a senior fellow studying low-income working families at the Urban Institute. Increased wages and family-friendly policies help on the edges, she said. But as we say, there's nothing like a strong economy to help everybody out. There are 2.7 million mothers ages 25 to 34 who are not married or living with a partner. They make up around a quarter of all mothers in that age group. In addition to facing the daily challenges of raising and supporting children without the help of another parent, they tend to be poorer and less educated than other women their age. Roughly half make less than $30,000 a year, compared with just 20% of all young women. Half have only a high school diploma or less, compared with 29% of young women. For many, jobs don't pay enough to cover the child care they need to work. So without policies like paid parental leave, sick leave, and public preschool, they can't afford to work. We're talking about mothers, but really we're talking about the children they're supporting, said Matthew McKeever, chairman of the sociology department at Haverford College, who has studied single motherhood. One of the major factors influencing the well-being of children in America is the economic inequality. Those without a college degree account for almost all of the recent increase in young single mothers' labor force participation. Employment has increased for young single mothers of all races in both urban and rural areas. Jobs in nursing and in managing and moving inventory in warehouses had the highest growth in employment for young single mothers between 2015 and 2018. Retail and administrative jobs had the largest decline. Though gig economy jobs like driving for Uber or shopping for Instacart are not consistently measured in the data, more single mothers are also doing these jobs in recent years, said Danica Delor, executive director of WANDA, a Bay Area nonprofit that helps low-income single mothers with economic self-sufficiency. When unemployment is low, it becomes easier for groups with barriers to employment to find work, and research shows it particularly helps less advantaged families. Employment has also increased for those with disabilities or criminal records and for long-term unemployed. Employers might offer higher wages or benefits that could make working and parenting easier, like predictable schedules or remote working. Single mothers' entry into work in the 1990s was also driven by a thriving economy and low unemployment, in addition to major policy changes. The Personal Responsibility and Work Opportunity Reconciliation Act of 1996, known as welfare reform, required many recipients to work and set an expiration date on benefits. The Clinton administration also expanded the earned income tax credit for low earners, which becomes more generous the more people work. The employment rate of single mothers climbed and the share on public assistance dropped. But work requirements also left a significant number without jobs or federal aid. A group researchers describe as disconnected. They tend to have less education and younger children and are more likely to be facing physical or mental health issues, substance abuse problems, or domestic violence. By 2016, there were roughly 3.3 million jobless single mothers and just 1.3 million families receiving welfare, known as Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, or TANF, the lowest number since welfare reform was enacted, according to LaDonna Pavati, Vice President for Family Income Support Policy at the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities. Even people eligible for TANF have been applying for it at lower rates, largely because of the reputation that it is difficult to obtain, researchers said. The Trump administration has proposed adding similar work requirements for people receiving food and housing assistance and medical coverage. See, I told you, that's Trump. Many safety net programs have been eviscerated and work requirements have been increased. That's why the single mothers are actually out there working in higher numbers, said Carol Burnett, Executive Director of the Mississippi Low-Income Childcare Initiative, a nonprofit that supports working mothers. If more single mothers are working, she said, it's for a simple reason. They need the money. At the same time, some states and cities have passed policies that help working families. One example is minimum wage increases. Areas that raised it most saw the largest rise in the rate of single mothers who work, the Times analysis found. This doesn't prove that higher wages caused the return to work, though areas with strong economies might have felt more confident raising minimum wages, for example. There's also some evidence, though not conclusive, that the expansions of Medicaid under the Affordable Care Act might have increased employment, particularly for people with disabilities. Young single mothers' participation increased 4 percentage points more in states that expanded Medicaid in 2014 versus those that didn't. Paid leave has probably helped too. 5 states and the District of Columbia have enacted or expanded family leave since the beginning of 2016. Paid sick leave went into effect or was expanded in 8 states and 13 cities, according to the National Partnership for Women and Families. Some companies have also expanded paid leave for hourly workers who had often been excluded from these benefits. State spending on public pre-K has significantly increased each year since 2015 school year, according to the National Institute for Early Education Research, and many cities have also begun offering public pre-K. Since the District of Columbia did so, the labor force participation rate of unmarried mothers with children under 5 has increased 13 percentage points, 4 points more than the increase for married mothers. They're doing that on purpose. They're trying to get people off these benefits and put them in the workforce, especially single mothers, and probably also because the fathers aren't making enough money anymore. Other more recent policies aimed at working families will probably add to the momentum, researchers said. At least half of the states are considering proposals to create or expand state earned income tax credits. And last year, Congress approved $2.4 billion increase of child care and development block grant to provide federal child care assistance to states, the biggest increase since the program began in 1990. The tight labor market and piecemeal policies seem to be helping more single mothers afford work, but they're not enough on their own, researchers said, to address the deeper issues that make it a daily challenge to earn a living while caring for children in the United States, particularly if the economy slows. Even with increased wages and even with the changes that are being made around leave policy and the like, employees are still at the mercy of their employers, said Kristen S. Seidfeld, an associate professor of social work and public policy at the University of Michigan. The way we think about workers, it's on us to take care of our personal and family issues. It's embedded in our culture. That's not the employer's job to do that. I think that's changing. I told you, uh, things are changing. And I think I've been telling you fellas that this stuff is going to come. And with the single mothers being forced back into the labor market and the benefits being stripped, um, now it's, when you think about it, now it's not as much as money, because if the benefits are being stripped, now they also need help. The father watching a child is as valuable as the money that he could put in. So say a poor father that earns less than $20,000, he might pay $300 a month. But a father that takes turns watching the child when the mother's at work is probably worth like $1,200 a month. And that's something that the state and the federal government should look into. If you're going to strip the mother away from the support, and you're not going to pay the fathers enough to support the family without the mother working, then you're going to have to support the fathers actually being in their child's life a lot more. So those fathers that have 30 kids or something like that, and the mothers are working, the mothers have to work, make that father watch his 6 or 7 small children. Have him come over to the house, and you sit there and you babysit those kids for the 8 to 10 hours that their mother's gone. I think that'll stop dudes from having kids, number one, and spreading their seed willy-nilly because they have to watch that kid. And number two, it'll take the burden off of the state and the federal government, because trusted childcare facilities are very expensive. And one father in the life of his kid that actually watches children is worth his weight in gold. Less child abuse, less molestation, less a lot of other things when the biological father is watching the kid. So brothers out there, beware, because if the single mother participation rate out there is on the increase, they're going to be on the hunt for help. And we got a lot of Pookie and Ray Rays, man, sitting up in the house not doing anything, with probably with children. And that means the women are going to have to stop being so hard-headed about dropping the kid off to the father. And that father should get some kind of support if you're going to sit at home watching a kid and watching, taking care of the kid for, 6, 7, 8 hours or 40 hours a week. Hey, give him a stipend, give him a couple $100 a week, or give him a couple $100 a month or $400 a month if he's going to be home watching his kid. There's going to have to be a rearrangement of social policy around child care and stuff like that. Sweden and Norway are already starting to do it, where they want more participation from the father than money out of the father's pocket. It makes no sense to send a father to prison for 90 days because he can't pay child support when he could be at home watching the kid and taking care of his kid and in his kid's life. It makes absolutely no sense. What can a father do in jail? It costs more money to put him in there. It's better that he be out watching his children and taking that burden off the state. But this stuff will be shaken out fairly soon, because at this point they can't afford to keep people on this welfare, keep people on this government tit. And if you look at the jobs that they have, the automation is going to come in and take some of this job. So this is only temporary. If they're forcing these chicks out into the workforce and cutting their benefits, and then on the other hand, automating their jobs, man, it's going to get messy. 2019, get right or get left. It's for the fellas and also for the women. And beware, guys. A lot of women are going to be coming at you with that hungry look in their eyes, and it ain't about you being fine or ain't about them being in love. They're going to be coming out of need. So for all of you fellas that wanted these women back at the table, be careful what you wish for. And like the old saying goes, if you pray for rain, you have to deal with the mud. And basically those clouds are forming, and I feel a few drizzles. The mud is coming. But with that, I'm going to jump off of here. This is BGS out, and I will see you guys on the next one. Peace.